Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I am Akshay Dongre. Coming up in the next hour. West Asia tensions escalate as Yemen missile triggers sirens in Israel and Tel Aviv strikes Tehran. India advises citizens to avoid travel to Iran and exit the country. Massive quake of magnitude 7.8 jolts Mindanao in the southern Philippines, triggering widespread alarm as emergency response teams monitor the situation. In Armenia, incumbent PM Nicole Pashinyan's ruling party secures victory, signaling continued westward alignment amid Russia tensions. Manav Suthar announces himself in style. India's spin sensation powers the host to a commanding follow-on against Afghanistan in the one-off test. Yemen, as air defenses were activated to intercept the threat, warning sirens were sounded across Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and surrounding parts of central Israel. The IDF said it is carrying out situational assessment, with people now permitted to leave protected spaces in all areas of the country. Yemen's Houthi rebels, who joined the West Asia war in March in support of Iran, have previously launched attacks on Israel. Iranian media reported on Monday that Israel struck the Karun petrochemical company in Manshahar in Iran, in southwestern region, of hours after US President Donald Trump urged restraint. Local officials confirmed Israeli projectiles hit the facility in the special petrochemical economic zone, prompting evacuation of daytime employees. The attack came as the two sides traded fire following Iran's missile barrage on Israel. Karun, which is a knowledge-based firm founded in 2002 and 2003, produces over 200,000 tons of petrochemicals annually. And in the view of latest developments in the region, the Embassy of India in Tehran has reiterated its earlier advice to all Indian nationals to avoid any travel to Iran. Indian nationals presently in Iran are also advised to exit the country by any available means of transport. The Embassy of India has issued a fresh advisory urging all Indian nationals to avoid travel to Iran amid rising regional tensions following Israeli strikes on the Iranian targets. The notice comes as Israel targeted a petrochemical facility in Manshahar and exchanged fire with Iran, escalating the conflict. Iran has warned the resumption of hostilities with Israel will negatively impact ongoing diplomatic negotiation with the US to end the West Asia conflict. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baqai stated that it is perfectly natural that the diplomatic process will be affected by the fresh wave of strikes. The remarks come hours after Israel hit an Iranian petrochemical facility, escalating tensions despite the US President Trump's public calls for restraint. The strikes from Yemen come after Israeli military struck targets in western and central Iran hours after Tehran fired a salvo of missiles at Israeli targets in retaliation for an attack on Beirut's southern suburb. According to the local media, sounds of explosions were heard in Tehran, Tabriz and Isfahan in Iran. The strikes mark a fresh escalation after weeks of negotiation on a potential deal to end the US-Israeli war with Iran. Israel has accused Tehran of committing a grave mistake with its assault, which Israel's military said amounted to 11 missiles, all of which were intercepted with no casualties. In also the first since April 8 truce, Tehran launched its first missile attack targeting Israel late on Sunday. Iran's Revolutionary Guard called the attack a warning, saying Israel made a grave mistake and that the military will continue to operate across all of Lebanon to stop Hezbollah fire into northern Israel. Meanwhile, Israel has closed crossings into Gaza again after Iran's strike, including the Rafah crossing and Karem Shalom. The coordinator of government activities in the territory said the move is part of a number of necessary security measures. The unit, which is part of the Israeli Ministry of Defense, says the closure will not have an impact on the humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip because substantial quantities of food that have entered the Strip since the beginning of the ceasefire significantly exceeded the nutritional needs of the population. Meanwhile, Tehran's international airport has suspended all incoming flights after Iranian missile strikes on Israel. According to media reports, the Civil Aviation Authority announced the suspension of all flights bound for airport until further notice. This is the latest closure for Khamenei International Airport, which is one of the two serving the capital. It had only reopened in April after being shut for weeks over the West Asia war. US President Donald Trump has reportedly urged restraint during a phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump has leaned on Israel to stop its attack in Lebanon to allow room for a deal to end the wider war with Iran. Referring to Netanyahu, Trump stressed and said, "I call the shots. I call all the shots. He doesn't call the shots." Trump has repeatedly insisted that an agreement to end the wider war remains well within reach. After recent strikes, a rift seems to have emerged between US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. On Sunday, after Iran fired missiles at Israel, President Trump urgently urged Prime Minister Netanyahu and told him to not retaliate. Trump called Netanyahu to halt any sort of response, stating each had their strike and that another is not required. He openly prioritized a final Iran deal over alliance solidarity and expressed unhappiness with Israel's earlier Beirut strike. The public call exposed a real-time rift between the two leaders. Despite Trump's pleas, Netanyahu ignored the warning. On Monday, Israel defied the US president and struck targets across Iran, further straining US-Israel coordination as tensions rose. In an interview with the US President, Donald Trump said he would not unfreeze Iranian assets or lift any sanctions before a peace deal is reached. Trump said he would consider those steps after an agreement is concluded. Trump also said that he was not demanding that Lebanon be a part of a short-term deal with Tehran.
I think we're very close. We have a couple of points. They don't even seem like big points. They've conceded the fact that they will not have nuclear weapons. We had a clause in there that we will not develop nuclear weapons, and everybody was very happy with it except me. And I said, well, what happens if they not develop, but they go out and purchase, they acquire? I want to put the word, if they buy or purchase or acquire, you've got to have that in there too, because that's not developing.
US Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has urged Israel and Iran to de-escalate the conflict. In a social media post, Foreign Secretary said the resumption of conflict between Iran and Israel is in no one's interest. Both sides must show restraint and de-escalate immediately. Negotiations must continue toward the lasting settlement that we all need for peace and stability in the region and for the full restoration of global trade. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC Plus, has agreed to raise oil output targets by 188,000 barrels per day for the month of July. The decision was taken during a virtual meet of energy ministers from key member countries including Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria and Oman. This increase follows similar production hikes approved in recent months. OPEC Plus said the move is aimed at supporting stability in the global oil market. The 7 core OPEC Plus members have already increased output quotas between April and June by nearly 600,000 barrels per day. However, the actual production has remained lower than expected due to export cut by some Gulf producers. OPEC figures show that average production fell to 33.19 million barrels per day in April compared to 42.77 million barrels per day in February. With Sunday's decision, the July increase of 188,000 barrels per day matches the revised June hikes, which had been reduced from earlier Monday increase to account for changes in participation, including the UAE's exit adjustments. Oil prices rose more than 3% on Monday when markets reopened after the weekend, reflecting renewed concerns over Iran's first attack on Israel since ceasefire. In early trading, the price of Brent crude international benchmark climbed 3.29% to $96.15 US a barrel. Its US equivalent, West Texas Intermediate, rose 3.25% to 93.48 a barrel. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Clashes between protesters and police kill 7 in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Switzerland votes on a referendum to cap its population at 10 million amid economic debate. Thousands of rare pink sea cucumbers wash ashore on a Thailand beach, drawing curious tourists.
We have one other neighbor, Pakistan, and there the response is very, is this doesn't apply because, when somebody practices cross-border terrorism as the central feature of the policy towards us, that, you have to also ensure there are consequences, that it is not something which will be cost-free. So when you are comparing eras, I think the one thing this country is very clear on, nobody wants to see again what happened at 26/11. The 26/11 was costly. That should never happen again.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I am Akshay Dongre. 7 people were killed and dozens wounded in clashes between police and a banned protest group in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, officials said on Monday. Commissioner Sardar Waheed, the top civilian officials in Rawalkot where the clashes took place, said 3 civilians were killed and 40 wounded in the clashes. The police has also confirmed that the incident left 4 officers dead and 23 wounded. Now moving on, Russian and Ukrainian regions reported fresh strikes and drone attacks targeting energy infrastructure, causing fire, casualty and widespread power disruptions. Russian air defense units repelled an overnight drone attack on energy infrastructure in the Volgograd region, with debris sparking a fire at a pipeline pumping station in Zhirnovsky district. Governor Andrei Bakarov said Russian strikes on energy infrastructure in the Odessa region caused power outages for over 1,000 customers, while a separate attack in Zaporozhye region killed 5 people and injured 14, according to regional officials. Officials said that the region was hit with airstrikes, drones and shelling, damaging infrastructure, residential buildings and vehicles as well. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has received the backing of the leaders of Britain, France and Germany in his calls for direct ceasefire talks with Russia. According to a joint statement, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed Zelensky's proposal for an end to the conflict and supported direct dialogue between Ukraine and Russia with active participation from United States and Europe. Zelensky met the three leaders at 10 Downing Street in London as the Russia-Ukraine conflict enters its fifth year. In a post on X, Zelensky said he also told Starmer that Ukraine needs additional missiles for its air defense system. The appeal comes just days after he published an open letter to Russian President Vladimir Putin proposing face-to-face talks aimed at ending the conflict. Following the meeting, Starmer, in a post on X, reiterated Britain's support for Ukraine and said that the UK would stand with Ukraine for as long as necessary. Now we'll begin our discussion on West Asia tension with Dr. Kinviraj Jangid, West Asia expert of OP Jindal Global University, who is joining us from Tel Aviv. Sir, this seems to be a sort of resumption of the conflict in a massive manner that was not expected at this point. How do you see the following days to proceed, with India also giving a warning to its citizens who are living in Iran? Do we see an escalation at a massive manner from this point, or can there be a solution with Trump asking for restraint?
Thank you. It is indeed a very, very unexpected account that has developed. However, if you look at it from inside Israel, I have been just here for a week. Israel has been in a very bad, precarious situation with regard to Hezbollah. And if we remember the last 2 weeks of very unkind words that Donald Trump spoke about Benjamin Netanyahu, he was basically telling Benjamin Netanyahu not to go further into South Lebanon or to Beirut in attacking Hezbollah fighters. Now, this situation was already a tense situation because Donald Trump didn't want the Lebanon front to spoil the negotiations. And I think Israel couldn't sit idle and attacked yesterday on Sunday one neighborhood in Beirut. It's called Daya. It's a Shia Muslim neighborhood and effectively the headquarters of Hezbollah. Iran said, they gave a warning that if you will attack Beirut, we will attack Israel. So I think Israel got this kind of a precarious moment where acted in terms of mitigating the Hezbollah fight, but Iran took a step ahead and launched around 10 ballistic missiles last night. So I lived through 2 sirens, 2 early morning and 1 now.
Professor Jangid, I have to ask you a question. We just in the last 48 hours also saw that Israel also destroyed some of the radar sites of Iran, who they accused were firing missiles and drones at the shipping containers who were passing through Strait of Hormuz without their permission. So how do you see this, back-to-back firing at each other to stop? Because clearly, as I recall, Strait of Hormuz was open before the conflict began. Now that has become the main objective of the US as far as this conflict is concerned. Second is also acquiring the enriched uranium that Iran had already said that they are not developing nuclear weapons. So the situation remains, the status quo remains in a sense that the objectives have become the reality pre-war. However, the objectives of Israel have been quite different. They always wanted an entire regime change for the threat of Iran to end completely. So do we see a proper rift here as far as the objectives are concerned between Israel and the US?
Indeed, you said it very well. There is a very obvious rift. And this rift has been developing since the ceasefire in April was reached. Israel was not happy, the timing of the ceasefire. Israel was not happy that Islamabad and Pakistan became the mediators. And Israel was not happy at all with all kind of details coming out of the deal where Trump would compromise on several other issues because he needs Hormuz to be reopened for global economy and even the international trade that America needs to be in smooth passage. So yes, I think Israel and America did only have a slight similarity of the objectives at the start of the war, but when the war became messy, like Hormuz became issue, Israel doesn't see the importance of Hormuz for itself, but Trump cannot really ignore the Hormuz issue. So in the last, and I think I must tell this to your audience, a week back, Donald Trump called Benjamin Netanyahu by name and said crazy word with F word before it. And then when a journalist asked, did you say that? He confirmed a day after in America, which means he was very unhappy with the kind of escalation that was taking place between Israel and Lebanon. But Israel in itself is in a bad shape because Hezbollah has also been violating the ceasefire. And somehow Trump doesn't have any leverage over Hezbollah or over Iran. So I think the rift is obvious, has been obvious, and now Iran is exploiting that rift.
Well, that's quite an interesting take here, Professor Jangid. But what is the solution? This conflict has been there for decades. We have seen the 6 Days War. We have seen other kind of conflicts erupting in the area. Israel has a major ally, and it's the biggest ally of Israel that remains the U.S. And if the U.S. president, a president like Donald Trump, is unhappy with the Israeli leadership, how does Israel continue with this conflict, especially given the fact that Iran is no Syria or Yemen? Iran is a massive country with a massive army. It has a massive backing coming in directly from China, from Russia in many aspects. So without the backing of US, what shots are really for Israeli government to call at this point in time, but to go solo as far as this conflict is concerned, that can be devastating for Israeli economy?
Israel can't do it alone.
Absolutely.
It deeply needs America, not only politically to back, but also militarily. In Israel, in the last 2 weeks, most of the government cabinet, except Netanyahu, everybody has been saying, we need to say no to Trump now. We need to stop this deal that is happening because this deal will not serve any of Israel's existential fears. So, in a way, a political class and ruling class in Israel is already, in a way, talking against the wishes of Donald Trump. However, this is more so just to have their domestic audience and vote bank, addressed. In practical terms, Israel will have to, and just yesterday to Financial Times in London, Donald Trump said, I call all the shots. Netanyahu doesn't call any shots, and he will have to do what I will tell him to do. So Israel has appeared now almost not a banana republic, but a highly, highly dependent country on American political decision making.
Well, Professor Jangid, let me ask you a very important question. And whenever there is a conflict, the biggest factor that has to be taken into account is also the domestic politics. Now we are talking about the domestic politics of Israel and the domestic politics of Iran. Looking as if the leaders have backed down from a conflict or have lost the conflict would impact both the leadership, Israeli and Iranian leadership, devastatingly as far as the domestic political front is concerned. So I want to understand from you that how is the domestic politics treating the leadership in Israel as well as in Iran? So we can divide it. First, let's talk about Israel. That how is Netanyahu going to convince the Israelis as far as continuation with this conflict, and what is the feedback coming in from the public at the domestic level?
Well, Netanyahu's traditional vote bank is quite unhappy with him at the moment that he's not saying no to Donald Trump.
Okay.
Yesterday, some of his own cabinet ministers, by the way, last evening on Sunday in Jerusalem said Tehran should burn. Israel should launch a war on its own. So I think the Israeli politicians are trying to give a sense that they are still, capable of acting independent. But by all means, Donald Trump does have influence that Netanyahu cannot at the moment resist. And he will have to go through this at some political cost. Mind you, there are elections coming up in Israel in the next 2 months. And already the estimates are that the way Iran war failed for Israel, regime change didn't happen. The way the ceasefire has been imposed much against Israeli wishes, the way Israel has been pushed to the margins. It's not part of the negotiations, right?
Right.
There was a time in Qatar they used to go, but here to Pakistan, even a Mossad chief cannot go.
Absolutely.
So Israel has lost quite a lot of political space, and Netanyahu will, is staring at a political cost.
And what about Iran? How do we see the Iranian domestic politics getting impacted by this conflict? Obviously, we had seen protests taking place earlier before the conflict started. There were massive protests taking place in Iran. But we have seen that instead of faltering, after the conflict began, people have rather united as far as an external enemy's threat is concerned. So how is the domestic politics in Iran going on?
That has to be seen. Is Iran being a very closed space? Listen, internet has been suspended in that part of the world for the last 3 months, effectively. So one doesn't really know what's happening in Iran. One only gets to know what the regime wants the rest of the world to know. As you said, oh, they came out on the street. There are protests in favor of the regime. People are united. It's an assumption yet to be really verified once the people will be able to speak their minds. But given all the past records, one can assume fairly this much, that the regime is very, very strong-handed. It will crush any kind of protest that will come against it, and it will paint every protest American-sponsored or Mossad-run. I think that's the biggest loss for the Iranian people, that now they will be labeled as either Mossad agents or the American funded agents.
And perhaps the
Iran
biggest
people will be in a very miserable situation for a long time.
Absolutely, and perhaps the biggest hope that Israel had, even after, rather soon after the death of Khamenei, that they had called for people to come out on the streets and take over the government. That clearly hasn't happened, and it seems that this seems to be a clear failure as far as the objectives of Israeli leadership is concerned from this conflict. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us and giving us all those details as far as the internal politics as well as the other aspects of the conflict are concerned. Now, moving on, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's civil contract party secured victory in parliament elections with 49.8% of the vote in the preliminary result that were showed on Monday. The win is being seen as a strong public endorsement of his pro-Western foreign policy shift away from the Russian influence. Pashinyan pledged to pursue closer European Union and US ties while maintaining balanced relations with Moscow and called for peace with Azerbaijan. The opposition's strong Armenia alliance trailed at 23.3%. European leaders, including Francis Macron, have congratulated him on the result so far. And from Armenia to Switzerland, Switzerland goes to the polls on June 14th on a referendum to cap its population at 10 million, sparking business concerns over a potential economic shock. The supporters of the cap, championed by the right-wing Swiss People's Party, have said that the population growth is straining infrastructure and driving up rents and crime. The Swiss population had grown to 9.1 million by the end of 2025. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck the southern Philippines on Monday, killing at least 15 people, collapsing buildings and sparking tsunami warnings across the region. As per the United States Geological Survey, a series of powerful aftershocks rocked the area from about 2 hours after the first quake, with the largest measuring 6.5 on the Richter scale. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said the government is coordinating with local officials, ordered suspension of classes in affected areas, and directed all agencies to respond immediately. The earthquake also caused structural damage, including cracks in a police building in Alabel, Philippines. The Philippine Seismological Agency PHIVOLCS lifted a tsunami alert in its southern provinces on Monday, saying that the risk from a magnitude 7.8 earthquake had now abated. While Indonesia also lifted a tsunami warning hours after ordering evacuations of northern areas. The tsunami warning had ended 4.5 hours after being issued. The Meteorology, Climatology and Geophysics Agency recorded small tsunami waves in at least 9 locations, with the highest recorded at 0.75 meters in Sangihe Island. Japan also issued a tsunami advisory for the parts of Pacific coast. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center stated that tsunami waves were possible within the next 3 hours, along the coast of the Philippines, Indonesia, Palau, Taiwan and Papua New Guinea. Now let's take a look at major previous earthquakes around the world and how they have impacted the world.
The 1906 8.8 magnitude earthquake in Ecuador generated a powerful tsunami that killed 1,500 people. The 1950 8.6 magnitude earthquake in India's Arunachal Pradesh caused intense landslides and killed 780 people. The world's first recorded magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck Russia's Kamchatka in 1952, triggering a massive tsunami that hit Hawaii. At magnitude 9.5, the 1960 Valdivia earthquake in Chile's Biobío remains the largest ever recorded, claiming 1,655 lives and displacing 2 million people. Striking Alaska in 1964, the magnitude 9.2 Good Friday earthquake triggered a tsunami that left 130 dead and caused $2.3 billion in losses. In 1965, a magnitude 8.7 earthquake struck near Alaska's Rat Islands, producing a 35-foot tsunami. The 2004 Sumatra Andaman Islands earthquake in Indonesia, measuring magnitude 9.1, triggered massive tsunamis that killed more than 280,000 people and displaced 1.1 million across South Asia and East Africa. The 2010 Biobío earthquake in Chile, measuring magnitude 8.8, killed 523 people and destroyed over 370,000 homes. In April 2015, a devastating earthquake struck Nepal, causing widespread destruction and significant loss of life. The 2025 Kamchatka magnitude 8.8 earthquake tied for 6th largest in history, followed dozens of large foreshocks. On April 20th, 2026, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck offshore Honshu, Japan. In March 2026, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck offshore Sanma, Vanuatu.
Now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Japanese city of Utsunomiya closed all the 94 primary and middle schools on Monday after its first ever bear sighting. The bear was sighted on Saturday evening in a residential area near a park and was last spotted early on Monday morning about 500 meters from a middle school. The Department of Marine and Coastal Resources said thousands of rare pink sea cucumbers washed up on Suan Son beach in Rayong, Thailand due to strong winds and rough seas, and that the event poses no threat to the marine ecosystem. The unusual pink wash along shoreline attracted several tourists. The Thai immigration and labor officials have raided Chinese-run restaurants in Bangkok's Hua Kwang district after claims that they were refusing Thai baht. They found 6 Chinese workers overstaying visas without work permits, but no restaurant were denying payment in baht. Coming back to India, from highways to high-speed rail, airport to port, India's infrastructure push under Prime Minister Narendra Modi is reshaping connectivity and logistics at an unprecedented scale. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday highlighted a series of flagship schemes aimed at improving living standards and expanding opportunities for millions of Indians. In a post on X, PM Modi said, and I quote, "Over the last 12 years, India has witnessed many transformations, and at the core of those changes is the welfare of the poor and downtrodden. We have always been inspired by Antyodaya, and our effort has always been to ensure that the benefits of development reach those who were left behind for decades." Prime Minister further added that it is also gladdening that technology has played a vital role in ensuring a better quality of life for the poor. Through direct benefit transfer and digital platforms, support is reaching people directly and transparently. This has reduced leakages, improved efficiency, and strengthened trust in the governance. This is how the journey of furthering Garib Kalyan has become a collective movement toward human empowerment and realizing our dream of a Viksit Bharat. Through mega initiatives like PM Gati Shakti, Pragati and Sagarmala, the government is aiming to build an integrated multimodal infrastructure network to power long-term economic growth. More details in this report.
Over the last 12 years, infrastructure expansion has become a key pillar of the government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Significant emphasis has been placed on developing highways, expressways, airports, metro networks, ports and high-speed rail corridors to strengthen connectivity and boost economic activity. The PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan is a comprehensive initiative to improve multimodal infrastructure connectivity across India's economic zone. Anchored on 7 key sectors: railways, roads, ports, waterways, airports, mass transport and logistics infrastructure, the holistic development plan involves an estimated investment of Rs 100 lakh crore. The plan uses a dynamic GIS platform developed by the Bhaskaracharya National Institute for Space Applications and Geoinformatics for real-time project mapping and integration of over 200 data layers. Launched in 2015, Pragati, or proactive governance and timely implementation, has fast-tracked projects worth more than Rs 85 lakh crore. Pragati ensures real-time coordination between the centre and states under direct prime ministerial supervision. Under PM Modi, India has witnessed a major push in expressway development. Notable examples include the Delhi-Dehradun Expressway. Inaugurated on April 14, 2026, this corridor reduces travel time between Delhi and Dehradun from 6 hours to just 2.5 hours. The 594-kilometer Ganga Expressway was officially inaugurated on April 29th this year. Built at an estimated cost of Rs 36,230 crore, the corridor reduces travel time between Meerut, part of the National Capital Region, and Prayagraj from 12 hours to roughly 6 hours. According to official data, India's national highway network expanded by nearly 61% between 2014 and 2025. Building upon the original 2016 Regional Air Connectivity Scheme, the Union Cabinet approved the launch and implementation of the Regional Connectivity Scheme, modified UDAN, for a period of 10 years from 2026-27 to 2035-36 with a total outlay of Rs 28,840 crore. Apart from strengthening domestic aviation infrastructure, the government has also expanded international air connectivity through the development of new global aviation hubs, including the Noida International Airport at Jewar. In the 2026 budget, the government has announced a Rs 16 lakh crore expansion blueprint to build 7 new high-speed rail corridors. Significant projects under execution include the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail project, which is receiving technical and financial assistance from the government of Japan. India has become the third largest operational metro network in the world. India has a coastline of more than 11,000 kilometers. Building on this, Sagarmala initiative promotes port-led development. Around 845 projects, estimated at Rs 6.06 lakh crore, have been taken up under the program. These initiatives highlight the government's emphasis on strengthening connectivity, enhancing logistics networks, and developing modern infrastructure to support India's long-term economic expansion.
The Indian equity markets remain under pressure on Monday, with the benchmark BSE Sensex trading at 73,590.69, down 652.65 points or 0.88% from its previous close of 74,243.34. The NSE Nifty also slipped below the 23,200 mark amid broad-based selling across sectors. Sentiments across the region of volatility in the domestic equities as well. And our DD India correspondent Shama Mishra joins us from Mumbai. Shama, we are seeing quite a lot of volatility in the markets, and obviously we know that the conflict that's taking place in the West Asia is the primary reason. But what other reasons do you see behind this volatility before we go back to the conflict?
Well, Akshay, for starters, it is the uncertainty which the market don't like, the traders don't like, and it is really all across the globe. This is what is scaring the markets right now. It's scaring the investors right now. If we are talking about the global markets, all are currently down because of the fact that is the uncertainty that is going on because of the conflict and a fresh escalation, and also the fact that there could be a compromise to the ceasefire. So the traders are really worried about that part. Apart from that, because of this escalation, because of this tension, the crude oil prices have also started going up, and this is another factor which the market is worried about. We are also seeing that the jobs report from the US was in the positive area, but that has also not helped the markets to stay in the green zone so far. Also, there is also a fear of the US Federal Reserve's stance, and what could be the announcement from that side. People are also looking closely at that particular factor. But yes, coming back to the Indian markets, definitely the Nifty 50 and the Sensex, they are both currently down 0.80%, the Sensex, and also around 0.90 percentage points for the Nifty 50. These sectors which are currently down today, which are dragging the markets down, is consumer durables, commodities, realty, pharma. All these sectors are currently trading in red zone, and if these escalations, if this current situation continues, definitely we will have to see such more scenarios in coming days, in coming weeks of the Indian markets as well as the global markets. Akshay?
Thank you so much, Shama, for all those details. It's indeed quite a volatile time as far as the markets are concerned, and not just for India, but globally. We are seeing the same trend continues, and perhaps till the time we have a proper end to this conflict, situation can be similar as far as the volatility is concerned. Now, moving on, India will host the BRICS Agriculture Working Group meeting from 9th to 13th June, focusing on global food security and agri-tech innovation. The upcoming BRICS Agriculture Ministers Conference is seen not just as an international meeting, but as a key platform expected to shape and give new direction to global agriculture policies. Meanwhile, Union Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan said agriculture production must increase to ensure food security while also promoting sustainable agriculture.
उत्पादन एक विषय है, उत्पादन लगातार बढ़ती रहे, फूड सिक्योरिटी सुनिश्चित होती रहे, खाद्य सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित हो, लेकिन पौष्टिक आहार भी लोगों को मिले और किसान की आजीविका और रोजगार ये सुनिश्चित और सुरक्षित रहने चाहिए। और सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर जिसको कहते हैं सतत कृषि, उसकी भी चिंता करते रहना चाहिए।
An Indian Business and Professional Council, Dubai, the Indian Consulate and Dubai International Academic City have called for stronger Indo-UAE collaboration on AI-ready skill-based education in Dubai, with a renewed focus on lifelong learning and innovation to support future workforce development. The call came during the IBPC Dubai Higher Education and Workforce Preparedness Focus Group Business Breakfast held under the theme Building a Future-Ready Education Ecosystem in Dubai. Education leaders, policymakers and industry stakeholders highlighted the growing importance of aligning academic programs with evolving workforce needs, particularly as artificial intelligence continues to reshape industry across the region. The discussions reflected a growing consensus that AI integration, employability, focused learning, internships and industry-led curriculum design will shape the next phase of education reforms in the UAE. They also discussed proposal to strengthen quality standards and encourage greater collaboration between educational institutions and the industry. And Germany could face an European Union fine for failing to comply with the bloc's pay transparency rule, part of effort to close the gender pay gap. For more, we are being joined by DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu in Berlin. Chiponda, what exactly does this pay transparency law require?
The EU pay transparency rules allow employees to request information on the average pay for comparable jobs from their employers, broken down by gender. Now, employers with 100 employees or more are required to report regularly on the gender pay gap. And it doesn't end there. Employers also have to inform job applicants of starting salaries, and they will no longer be allowed to ask applicants about their previous salaries. Now, Germany actually missed a deadline on Sunday, so yesterday, to implement those new rules. And that means that it is now in violation of EU pay transparency laws. So it is up to the European Commission to decide if it will be fining Germany as a result. EU countries had until yesterday to amend their national laws, but the German government recently said that the German law won't be changed until early next year.
Now, what would the law actually change for the employees, especially when we talk about women in Germany?
It will allow them to find out if they're being paid less by their employer for the same work as a man. Now, data shows that on average, German women have historically earned less than men. The latest official European statistics, which are from 2024, show that the average hourly wage for women in Germany was 15.6% lower than that of men. Now, that figure was actually more than 3% lower than the EU average. So the gender pay gap here in Germany is actually bigger than it is in other EU countries. Now, of course, the gap isn't just about people being paid differently for the same work in companies. For instance, there is also a certain level of transparency related to pay here in Germany in some areas, like in the public sector, where remuneration scales are available to workers. But that isn't the case for most of the private sector, and small and medium-sized companies are major employers here in Germany.
So why is Germany falling behind with implementing the new rules?
Germany's Family Minister Karin Prien said Germany would like to have a low bureaucracy implementation. Now, German employers, of course, often complain about the red tape, so Berlin is actually in talks with other EU countries in an attempt to secure some changes to the new EU rules. The German Family Minister also cited the country's ongoing economic situation as the reason for the delay. Now, that means that company reporting requirements and the right to the information will most likely only take effect from June 2028 here in Germany. But there are, of course, many reasons for the gender pay gap. There are structural issues which lead to the pay gap, like women being penalized for taking time off during pregnancy and losing out promotions as a result. And of course, women also take on the bulk of childcare. On top of that, the areas of work that women dominate are often less well paid. So that too may be something that might need to change, not just here in Germany, but also in other parts of Europe, especially here in Germany, because of course the sectors with job losses in recent years have been the better paid and male-dominated jobs.
Well, thank you so much. That was Chimponda Chimbelu, our DW correspondent in Berlin. Now, moving on with news coming in from India, the Indian Meteorological Department has issued heavy rainfall warning for several parts of the country as the southwest monsoon continues its steady advance, raising concerns over flooding, waterlogging and landslide in vulnerable areas. Let's take a look at this report.
With southwest monsoon rains gaining momentum, the India Meteorological Department issued alerts for many districts in the coastal states of Kerala and Karnataka. Heavy rains lashed Kerala, especially the northern districts, on the weekend, triggering a series of fatal accidents, land cave ins, and structural collapses that claimed 5 lives, including 3 children. The southwest monsoon remained active in Kerala. IMD has issued an orange alert for Kozhikode, Kannur, and Kasargod districts. Alerts are in place for many districts for Tuesday and Wednesday as well. The IMD department has also advised fishermen not to venture into the sea as squally weather is likely to prevail along and off the Kerala coast. Lakshadweep is also expected to receive widespread rainfall. Weathermen also issued red alerts for 2 coastal districts of Karnataka. A red alert will be in force in 5 districts on Tuesday and in 7 districts on Wednesday, indicating increased rainfall as the week progresses. Authorities have urged residents to remain cautious as intense downpours could disrupt transport and daily life. The monsoon is expected to advance further into additional parts of Maharashtra, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha over the next few days. Meanwhile, marine warnings remain in force over parts of the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Strong winds and rough sea conditions are expected, prompting authorities to advise fishermen against venturing into affected waters. In the north, a fresh western disturbance is likely to trigger isolated thunderstorms and gusty winds over Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan later this week. The India Meteorological Department predicts that northeast India will receive normal rainfall during the June September monsoon season, while the rest of India anticipates a weaker, below normal season. The northeast remains a highly favorable exception with the monsoon gathering momentum across the country. Disaster management agencies and local administrations are on alert, closely monitoring weather conditions and preparing for any emergencies. Bureau Report, DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for sports. India enforced the follow-on after bowling out Afghanistan for 152 in their first inning on day 3 of the one-off test in New Chandigarh. Resuming the day at 113 runs for the loss of 5 wickets, Afghanistan could only add 39 runs to their overnight total in response to India's first innings, 564 runs for 8 declared. The visitors resisted through Rahmat Shah's 60 before they folded late on in the first session. Left-arm spinner Manav Suthar ended with dream figure of 6 for 33 on the debut. Washington Sundar wrapped up the inning after he sent back number 11 Ziaur Rahman for 6. In their second inning, Afghanistan were 21 runs without the loss of any wicket. The Brazilian Football Federation announced that injured fullback Wesley will be replaced by the World Cup squad by midfielder Anderson. Wesley suffered the injury in Saturday's 2-1 friendly win over Egypt before leaving the field in tears. 26-year-old Ederson made the last of his 3 international appearances in March 2025. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, set to kick off on June 11, is being co-hosted by the US, Mexico and Canada. 5-time World Cup winners Brazil start their campaign on Saturday against Morocco before facing Haiti and Scotland in Group C. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available both on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Akshay Dongre, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.